Hello, you sexy, gorgeous projectors in PPP. Projectors Unite. I hope you have been enjoying settling in to our space and container and really allowing yourself to dive in. Remember, the unsexy work are the deep dives. It is when you reach the bottom of the ocean, and it's for you to push back up with your feet at the very bottom of the sand and rise towards that sunlight, to the light. So you guys, today what we're talking about is a projector phenomenon which we're going to be going into deeper inside our program, but we need to have a base understanding of how we're holding ourselves back in this area before we move forward. So the whole thing about being a projector is that we literally project out what we are thinking and feeling about ourselves. Now, this can be used in a very powerful way, and we have a tendency as projectors to go back into the low frequency thinking, the old patterns, the beliefs that do not serve us. And we make it harder and harder and harder and way more difficult than it needs to be. But our brains, our minds get lost. And this is the moment where we get stuck at the bottom of the ocean. And we can't rise up, or it's so hard, or it feels like we have weight on our ankles. It all comes back to what we're thinking. Now, I want to ask you guys, have you ever felt like you were not being seen, even though you're visible? Have you ever felt like nobody's listening, even though there are people in your world? Have you ever had the thoughts that it's not working when really it is? Now, what happens is we have these moments like we're visible, but we're not really being seen. And from there, we create stories that don't exist. And we make things up that sound oh so logical to us. They make perfect sense in our minds. And then all of a sudden, this story comes out in the projection field. And then all of a sudden, on the big screen, that's what everybody else is seeing. So it goes in this vicious cycle. Because then you start to create your tangible results and you're like, see, I am right. This is what's happening. Nobody's seeing me. They're not listening. But it's all because you started it. You projected that film out. Now, this is why as projectors, it's so important for us to have our leaders, our mentors, our coaches, our support system. People that can really see us for who we are. People that are really going to be able to pull us, snap us out of those thoughts that are not serving us whatsoever. We kind of begin developing this self-sabotage for unnecessary reasons, just to make it harder for ourselves. Because there's no way it can actually feel that good. There's no way we go back into that generator sacral conditioning. It's like, there's no way I can really let it be like this. Or we never get to the point where it feels like that. And we're like, that's actually not possible. See, told you. You just want to be right. But guess what? You don't need to prove yourself right in the limitation. Where I'm going to take you right now is for you to prove yourself right in the limitless potential field. How much better does that feel? So what happens for us is things could be going 95% good. And then we're just like, well, yeah, no. I'm just going to focus on that 5% that isn't great. I'm going to focus on that 5% that is not quite there yet. Now, the reason we do this is because it creates our safety. We have these thoughts about these fears and these stories, and the biggest part is that fear of visibility, really being seen in your most vulnerable state. But what happens is the focus of that 5% is projected out, right? And then that's what other people are seeing. And that's the moment of sabotage. So What I want us to begin to develop our awareness around, which is going to be critical before we dive in to our calls starting next week, is to really understand how frequently we go into the disbelief within ourselves. The stories that do not serve us, the 5% that is not working, and how much time, attention, and focus we give it. And I want you to ask yourself why. So, I want you in your work over the weekend is to dive in really deep. And I want you to ask yourself how often in your day-to-day occurrences, whether this be in work or life, or just literally your day-to-day habits, do you see the negative in something? Do you let your mind wander to the 5% of what is not working? To the moments where it's like you could be hopeful, but you're not going to be. You're going to play in this world of logic. Well, this could happen, so it's probably going to happen. And I want you to ask yourself, how does it feel when you take yourself there? And what is the truth beneath that? Why do you do that? Why do you sabotage yourself there? Why do you not let yourself play in the hope and the vision and the limitless potential? And instead you play in the realm of disbelief, not believing that it could happen, not believing that it's meant for you, not believing that it could be you, not believing that it could feel that good, not believing that it could be that ease-filled, not believing that things could turn around in a heartbeat, in literally 1 second. So instead of believing, why are you continuing to go back to disbelief? I am very excited and very curious to see what your answers and what comes up and what surfaces for each of you as individuals and what we all have in common in this area. This is huge. This will change the way that you see your perspective within the world and your ability to move yourself with more ease. I love you so much. Have a beautiful day, and I cannot wait to read your answers.